All right, y'all. Welcome to the Trendsetter podcast. I'm your host, LaTonya Baker. And today we have on the show the Rosemary Experience. Miss Rosie, Miss Simpson, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for asking and welcome to the show. As I stated, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. From one content creator to another, I definitely welcome you. I definitely want to get the chance to get to know you on today. I've been reading up some of your information and have a lot of questions for you. We have similar stories. And when I get the chance to talk to women who share similar stories or similar platforms, it's always a pleasure to
hmm
get to know them a little better. So I definitely thank you for your time today. So, Rosemary,
Thank you for having me.
you're very welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Oh, I wear actually many hats, but the basis of who Rosemary is, I am a single mother and I am a cosmetologist, an entrepreneur. So that's the main thing that I do with my life. But the backstory to who I am is that I come from a lot of abuse and a lot of negativity that could have held me down, but I decided to rise above it. And I continue to grow and to lean towards God in order to make sure that I'm living my life in a way that my children won't have to suffer through the things that I've suffered through.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. At what point in your life did you decide you wanted to share your story on this platform? So, because not everybody has that will, that strength, and that ability to share their story. Some people keep it bottled in.
Wow.
Some people may only talk to their friends and family about it. But what was it
Oh,
about
yeah.
your story, or at what point in your life did you say, you know what, I'm going to take this publicly and I'm going to share this to help others? Like, when did you make that
Mm-hmm.
decision and why?
I'm so glad that you asked me that question because that's a question I haven't really answered before.
Mm,
Um, so I actually have been in two domestic violence situations. So the Rosie experience is basically me explaining what I've been through.
hmm
Um, so I was married to my first husband for almost 7 years. And he was abusive, but nobody knew because he was kind of like I'm going to hang out with the family. I'm going to be around you all the time, but I'm
hmm
going to hit you in spots that the bruises don't show.
Oh
So
no.
nobody knew what was going on. He also was a cheater. Nobody knew any of that. But we were taking care of my nephew together, and that was one of the main reasons why I wouldn't leave him because he was really helpful in that area, but in every other way, completely destructive. He wouldn't work or anything. When
Mm,
I finally got the guts to leave him, he attempted to kill me, and so I wound up posting a status on Facebook explaining that why I wasn't with him anymore, and I just left it at that. I started dating someone else, and that was my next abuser. I didn't realize this guy was abusive, but I got pregnant with him extremely quickly, like within a month of us dating. And when
mm,
I got pregnant by him, he started hitting me. He busted my mouth the first couple months of my pregnancy, and it was shame. And I was like, I don't want to tell anybody this because I literally just got out of a relationship that nobody
mhm,
knew I was being abused in, and now they know. And so I don't want to tell them, hey, I picked wrong again. So I didn't say
mhm,
anything, and I just stayed with him. And he would pull guns out on me. He would punch me, kick me. He would do everything you could think of. And
mm.
we had three kids together. And so he wound up breaking my jaw after being with him for a year.
Oh no.
And instead of leaving him, I just told him that he had to leave, but he kept coming back. And then in 2021, he broke my ribs. And this was 2 months after we had our last child. So that's when I knew I had to leave. And when I decided to leave, I knew I couldn't just leave and stay in my hometown because I left and stayed in my hometown with my ex-husband. And then that caused me to still be being like stalked and everything. So
Mhm,
then with him, I was like, okay, every time I've tried to leave him, he comes back. So I have to go out of town. So I went out of town with my kids, and then I just started posting TikToks. Not really talking at first; it would just be TikTok videos where I would just like listen to some sort of sound and then put words on the screen.
mhm.
Then eventually, I started telling stories of things that he did to me, and I went from having 200 followers to 1,000 really quickly on TikTok. Then I started going live because you can go live after 1,000 followers, and I
Mhm.
went from 1,000 to 10,000 extremely quickly. And so I just realized that there were a lot of people who have similar stories to
Oh
me,
yeah.
but they just don't know that they can talk. And
Right.
my thing was not talking is what allowed it to keep happening because I would
Right.
go around family and just have a short temper with family rather than letting them know what's going on at home. So instead of them being able to help me, I would not tell them anything out of shame, and then that just caused him to keep being able to do it. If you don't tell anyone what's happening, it's going to keep happening. So
Right.
I
Right.
use my voice because I call myself a voice for the voiceless. Because for all the people who feel like they can't talk, I'm going to talk for you. I'm going to say the things that you're thinking so that you can know that you're not alone and you can get out.
Exactly. Well, first of all, let me say I'm very sorry to hear that you went through that. I commend you for speaking out for others on behalf of others, because you're right. A lot of times people go through it and they're afraid to speak out. I'll tell you what my
Mm-hmm.
mother used to tell me before she passed. And at the time she told me this, I didn't understand it. She used to say that what you're going through is not about you. And I didn't understand it at the time. And I would
Mm-hmm.
always say to myself, like, what do you mean it's not about me? I'm the one that's hurting. I'm the one that's dealing with
Mm-hmm.
this. Who is it about? And it wasn't until she passed that I
Mm-hmm.
started thinking about what she would say, because I was fortunate enough to get through a lot of my trauma. And when I
Yes.
started developing my empire, and I started talking to women who had was dealing with similar issues that I had already gone through, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, that's what
Yep.
she meant. This is not about me.
Same
And I
here.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
just said this morning, be careful who mentors you, because often when someone is mentoring someone else, they tend to take them through the same patterns that they went through to get to where
Mm-hmm.
they are. And that's not really good mentorship, in my opinion. I don't think we
Mm-hmm.
should take people through those patterns. I think we should explain the process to them and let them and prepare
Yes.
them for the process and show them how to become the process. Because when we take people
Yes.
through those same patterns, we could ultimately set them up for failure. So I commend
Yes.
you
I
again
agree.
for I commend you for telling your story, because what you went through was never about you. It's going to be about who you're going to help. It's going to be about you becoming a
Yes.
voice for others who do not have that voice. So
Yes,
again, I
ma'am.
commend you for that. Another question I have, throughout telling your stories, what have been some of your barriers? Like, what have you ran into as far as having this platform now and telling your stories? Have people tried to attack you verbally? Have people spoken against your movement? Like, what are some of the things that you've
Mhm.
dealt with? Because I don't think people understand that, especially women like us who have this platform and try to share that platform, what we sometimes deal with in the background. Like, what are some of the things that you've dealt with?
Man, you asking some hard questions today. Okay, so listen, this is. I honestly just want to start out with the Holy Spirit lives within me, so I'm afraid of nobody. I'm not scared of
Oh
anyone.
yeah.
But there are definitely people who have tried to silence me. I
Hmm.
want to say my ex-husband, he actually has a sister who has messaged me before and said, "That's embarrassing to us. Why would you talk about that? That happened years ago.
Hmm.
We don't even, you don't even deal with him anymore. Why are you talking about that?" And then my ex-boyfriend actually had to block all his family on social media because his family would always say things too. But my thing is, if you guys knew what was happening while it was happening and did nothing about it, who are you to tell me how I'm supposed to heal? Who are
Right.
you to tell me how I'm supposed to get over it? You're not allowed to do that. So what
Right.
I've chosen to do is every time anyone speaks against it, I just block them. This isn't for you then. That God has given me an assignment
Right.
and I'm going to walk out my assignment no matter who doesn't like it. So yes, I've had actually I was working at a salon when I first moved here. It was one of the best salons here in Kansas City. And I would have clients come in and they would start talking to me about their life. And as a hairstylist, people do that all the time. But I'm the
Right.
kind of hairstylist I'll go back and forth with you. So we would talk about our life in, inclusively. And the owner of the salon would be like, "Well, maybe you should just talk about the weather or something." And I'm like, "No, you're not going to silence me. If this client is talking about her life and I'm talking about my life, we're not offending anyone. You're not going to
Hmm.
tell me I can't talk about my life just because it's your salon." So I just left her salon.
Hmm.
Like, I've had people in multiple different areas, in person and on social media, try and silence me. But like I
Hmm.
said, Holy Spirit lives within me. And when God wants me to talk, I'm going to talk no matter who's offended.
Most definitely, I agree.
But
And
family has done it as well. I've had a brother before, one of my brothers, I have a lot of brothers. He called me and he was like, "I don't know if you should really be doing that, Rose, because that kind of sounds like you're the one being malicious now." I said, "Me
mm,
telling my story is not me being malicious. This is just me letting everybody know that if you're going through anything similar to this, you
hmm
don't have to be silent. That's not called being malicious. That's being a voice for the voiceless."
most definitely, it sounds like this is your purpose. And I always say that, you don't go looking for your purpose; it finds you, and your purpose is
Mm,
not always going to be pretty. With purpose comes pain. Anything that
Yeah.
was designed to be your purpose, there is pain that comes with that. So again, I commend
Yeah.
you for pushing forward. I commend you, and it's all in the manner on how we do things. We can tell our story
Yes,
without
ma'am.
offending anyone. And just a little bit about me
Yes,
and what
ma'am.
happened to me. I was molested by my childhood female babysitters at an early age. That taught
Mm.
me to not expose people because I was afraid of exposing them, because I was afraid of, even
Mm.
as a kid, what could come with that. They were, well respected
Mm-hmm.
individuals in the community, and I'm like, if I tell this story, people are going to think I'm lying. People respect them, so let me
Mm-hmm.
protect their identity. Let me protect, who they are. And for years, I grew up protecting people even when they hurt me. So again, it
Mm.
takes a lot of will. It takes a lot of strength to do what you're doing. I commend you on that. I support you in what you're doing. And again, it's all in a manner of how we do things. So again, I commend
Yes,
you on
ma'am.
that. And especially
Thank
when it's
you.
family, it's pretty hard. It's really hard. I've been talking a lot about relationships and things of that nature, and sometimes what we go through in relationships, and unfortunately, yours was abuse. When it comes to relationships now, how is it that you
Mm-hmm.
choose who you choose you're going to be in a relationship with? What have you done to kind of not allow that past trauma to interfere with your current relationships? What have you done for yourself when it comes to self development?
So actually, I've chosen to not date at this time. But I will say that when I first moved from my hometown in 2021, I was confused and I felt like I just don't want to be with another man because I felt like it was men. Like this, men are abusive, men are this, men are. That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to I tried to date a girl, which I don't know why I did that. Honestly, I know why because in my childhood, I have a similar story to you. I was molested by females as a child. So in
Mm-hmm.
my childhood, that was introduced to me, but I just never fed into it.
Mm-hmm.
So after all the abuse happened with the only two men I dated, I was like, I that means I need to try to date a female. But I still wasn't good at choosing. I still was very submissive. I still was very naive. So she had the same characteristics of the what I had just left. So we talked for about 6 months and then I stopped talking to
Okay.
her. And then I gave my life to God immediately. And ever since I gave my life to God, I've been so serious about it. I did not waste any time to get rid of because I was very heavily smoking weed and drinking alcohol. I got rid of all of that before I even gave my life to God. Got rid of it. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't touched it, and I also decided that I was not going to do anything that I know is a sin. Of course, there are sins that we don't really realize at first, but anything I know is a sin, I'm not going to do it. So I
Okay.
changed the way that I talk. I changed the music I listen to, and I attempted to date a guy, but that didn't even last for a whole month. So I just was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I'm realizing that if he doesn't have God in him, I don't want anything to do with him because we all are people who are going to continue to need God for the rest of our life. So if it's a man who doesn't even feel like he needs to call on God before he talks to me,
Mm-hmm.
then I don't want him. If he doesn't even feel like he needs to lean on God for understanding before he deals with anything, then
Mm-hmm.
I don't want him. So that has been the deciding factor for me. Even
Okay.
guys who are in church, who are singing in church choirs, have tried to talk to me and they live a life completely opposite of what they claim to live.
Mm-hmm.
So I view people from a distance. And if I realize that they're not safe for me, then I just leave them where they're at as far as like, okay, we're just going to be associates or we might not talk at all. Because even just because you're interested in me doesn't mean that I have to allow you into my life. It's a privilege to be in my life. It's not something that is just granted to you. You have to be walking at least the same Christ walk with me if you
Mm-hmm.
think that I'm going to allow you into my life. I have 5 children to take care of. I'm not going to just let just anybody in my life if I left my children's
Right.
father.
Right. No, I completely understand. And what I'm about to say next is based on experience and based on observance. So, in
Hmm.
experience, me going through what I went through as a child and being molested, what I identified and what I discovered was that I allowed toxic relationships to exist in my life. I accepted them, and
Hmm.
we typically teach people how to treat us. When you may
Yep.
lack confidence, when you don't know your worth, When you're
Yeah.
insecure, this is what we wear on our face. So this is who we attract. And so growing up, I attracted toxic friendships, whether it was men and women, they were just toxic, and I accepted it. And I spent so much time trying to show how loyal I was to these individuals when they were never going to
Yeah.
get it. So I commend you for taking the time to self-reflect and do some self-development on your own, because what's going to happen is once God is done molding you, you're going to attract a different type of people. And
Yeah.
whatever who you were prior to that, um, it wasn't that you were weak. Sometimes when people project their trauma on us, it's because they're sometimes intimidated by who we are, our characteristics, our love,
Yeah.
our big hearts, and things of that nature. So everything that happened to you may not even had anything to do with you. It may have had to do with who they were and what they went through. And I've learned that about
Yes.
people. Sometimes they project their trauma on us because of who they are, and they may meet someone that has this big heart that's nice, and things of that nature. And now you're a target. Also, we have to be mindful of our conversations with the next individual, because when we tell them what we dealt with in our last situation, then we give them time to rehearse. They may appear to us
Yeah.
to be that one person that we've been looking for and dreaming about in the beginning, but sometimes it's the same script, just a different cast. And so I had to learn to stop having these conversations with the new boos and telling them what the last
Yeah.
person did to me, because all they're going to do is do it in a different form. He may not abuse you
Yeah.
physically, but he may abuse you mentally, verbally, and things of that nature. And sometimes that's how it starts. And so we're thinking,
Yeah.
I told him my story, he sympathized with it, so he cares. And then we're just setting ourselves up for a different type of situation. So again,
Yeah.
trauma happens in all different forms and fashion, but I really commend individuals who take their trauma and they turn into triumphs. We also have to
Yes.
think about, triggers, what triggers us into thinking about that type of trauma. So everything that you're going through, everything that you went through, like I said, it was not about you. It's going to be about who you can help. I commend you for not allowing others who speak against your movement to stop you in your tracks. Just think about the
Yes,
most
ma'am.
successful people who continue to empower others and what they had to deal with to get to that situation.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question I have for you, what is it that you would say to someone that comes to you and says, hey, thank you for sharing your story. I'm dealing with something similar. What would you advise me to do? Because I get that sometimes. I get women who inbox me or email me and say, hey, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. How do I get out? Like, what is some of the advice that you give women who are in your situation, or men? Let's not forget about men. There are some
So
men
I've
who
had
deal with
women
domestic
and
violence.
men.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've had women and men contact me on numerous occasions. And it's a kind of a light that I've always carried. Even before I started telling my story, people have always just dumped all of their trauma onto me. People have always felt comfortable enough to tell me everything about their life. I just didn't know how to handle it before. But now that, like I said, now that Holy Spirit lives in me and I'm able to receive what God wants me to say first, when people tell me about what they're going through in their life, I listen to them and let them get everything out first. Let them throw it all up, say whatever they have to say. And then I start trying to help them align those pieces into a puzzle, like so that they can see, okay, well, maybe if you alter just this part of your life, what you're doing, then that would cause you to be able to have an out from this. Or if they don't want to get out, they just want to change the person, I let them know you can't change anyone. And I tell them my testimony. I thought that I could change my ex-husband. I stayed with him for 7 years. You can't change someone who doesn't want to change. All you
Most
are
definitely.
responsible for is yourself.
Yeah.
You're responsible for how you react and also who you allow in your life, who you allow close to you. So if this person is continually showing you that they don't care about you, it doesn't matter what they say. They can say they love you, that you're the only one. They can say all of that. But if the way they're treating you doesn't show you the same thing, then you need to be trying to find an exit plan. So my big thing is to tell women about exit plans. So I'm very big on domestic violence shelters because I went to one twice and it saved my life both times. Nice. So I tell women all the time, and usually they'll kind of shy away, like, I don't want to go to a shelter, and they'll just stay. Yeah. I have a woman right now. I've been knowing her since high school. She contacts me all the time telling me the same thing about the same guy. And every time I bring up a domestic violence shelter, I see her posting pictures with him again. If you don't go to a shelter, then you're not really ready to leave. If you feel like you're so scared because he knows everything about your life, He's always threatening to kill you. You don't see another way out, but you're so attached to your job or your house that you don't want to go to a shelter, then you're not really ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing that I have told so many different women, because I left everything. I moved to Kansas City in one day. I packed as much as I could in 2 bags, and me and my kids got in the car and went to Kansas City and went to a domestic violence shelter. I left TVs. I wasn't attached to nothing. And then I called my landlord, and they let me out of my lease because it was due to domestic violence. And that's another thing people don't know. If you have to leave because of domestic violence, they won't put it on your credit. It's in the lease. So if you're serious about wanting to get away, then just go. And so I kind of just give my testimony, and sometimes I feel like I might be being a little too stern, but at the end of the day, I needed somebody to be like that with me, and they weren't.
Yeah.
They would just kind of teeter-totter around it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you the real. He's either going to continue to abuse you until you die in it, or it's going to become so normal to you that you don't even want to leave anymore.
Yeah.
So I just kind of give them the real, and that's the way that I handle it. Like, I honestly, no filter, just explain the real to them, but then I still let them talk every time that they need to talk. But at the end of the day, I'm still standing there telling them, I can shield you and help you. These are the steps I took, but I'm not going to use my energy to help you if you aren't even serious enough to take that step and go.
Most definitely. No, again, and I commend you for that. I have so many other questions because there's so much when it comes to domestic violence. It's something that's continuing to be ongoing. And I don't think there's even enough advocates such as yourself. You know, we need more people like you in this world that can say, hey, this is my story. I'm going to share my story. But I'm not only going to share my story, I want to help you. So we're going to be wrapping things up. I wanted to know, how can people find you? Where's your platform located?
So the Rosie Experience, it's and then Rosie, ROSIEXPERIENCE. I am on TikTok. I'm actually at 12K followers right now, 12.2K. Nice. I'm on YouTube, Facebook. I also have a podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that on Instagram too. That's where I can be found. And I'm also about to publish a book.
Nice. Congratulations on that.
I wrote a book about my life. Thank you. I wrote a book about my life. I'm really just trying to get the cover art done, but I wrote a book about my life and everything that I went through, how I got there. I spent a lot of time with God. He literally took me back to everything that I went through and let me watch it, because I'm a master of escapism. So I would escape it while it was happening. I would remove myself from my body and just not feel anything. And that was detrimental to me.
Yeah,
so God took
imagine.
me back to all of those situations. And I watched it happen, and I just typed everything I saw. So I turned it into a book, and I will be publishing that soon as well. And I'll be putting it on all my social medias whenever it's ready for sale.
Well, definitely congratulations, Rosie. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I'm pretty sure we're going to cross paths again, especially, being in the same lanes that we're in as far as women entrepreneurs and content creators. I commend you for each and everything that you're doing. I wish you the best of luck. Don't stop telling your story, because it's women like myself and others that need you. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience. I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to cross paths with you again and hopefully be working with you sometime in the near future. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.